Radio Rahim here with Dan Blake.
So it's Dan Blake here for the Sports with Blake podcast. We are live at Fatal Fury, Eubank versus Benn. The weigh-in just completed. It's all fiery, so much action. I'm here with the legendary boxing broadcaster, Radio Rahim. How you doing, sir?
I'm well, man. I'm having fun. There's a little better than that 24 or 36 hours between the weigh-in and the first bell. It's a little bit of time when all the work is done and you can kind of just be a fan and wait on the action.
Sure. I want to know straight off, what's the keys to victory in this fight between Chris Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn? Keys to victory for both fighters, please.
It comes down to will. And I'm not trying to swerve your question, but honestly at this stage, it depends on whose will prevail. Each one of them has some advantages in their corner on paper. We don't know if on the night those advantages materialize, but what we do know is whoever wants it more, whoever's the most disciplined, whoever refuses to lose has a better shot than the guy who doesn't.
So what does discipline look like to Radio Rahim when it comes to boxing?
Discipline is the cornerstone of life, and boxing is a way of life. Discipline can be the difference between talent and skill, a difference between a talented fighter who has no discipline and a skilled fighter who has no discipline can be beaten by an average fighter who is incredibly disciplined. In life, you don't have all the advantages you would like. There are hurdles you have to clear, elements that you have to overcome, things that you have to believe you can do that you shouldn't be able to do. And the difference between succeeding and failing is often discipline.
So when it comes to a big fight where two fighters are going to need extreme discipline, I believe that Usyk and Daniel Dubois has been announced. Tell us your thoughts on that fight. This could be a defining fight for Daniel where he could become undisputed champion. He's on good momentum. Can he beat Mr. Usyk? What's your thoughts on the fight?
Well, I thought you were going to go with the discipline needed to make 160 pounds for Chris Eubank Jr., so I'm going to answer that question, and then we'll move on to the undisputed heavyweight championship. I think Chris Eubank Jr. exercised discipline and trying to cut down on that weight, and it was the narrowest of margins, half an ounce, 0.5, that cost him $500,000. And let me tell you what, it wasn't his professionalism, it wasn't his desire or his willingness to go through the pain of making weight. That half an ounce, boy, for the individual cutting the weight, is such a fraction of a element of pain that you have to go through to make that extra half an ounce, that it wasn't about him wanting to do it, being willing to do it, being professional enough to do it. He was an hour late to the weigh-in. Wow. Literally, that was the difference. If he had one more hour, he could have gotten off half an ounce. And that takes us back to discipline. He did all of these things that were so difficult, so painful, so hard to do for anybody. And he came so close, and something that you weren't even thinking about, something that nobody was discussing, the traffic on the way to the weigh-in, the time you leave home, whether or not you wake up and get in the shower on time to get out of the door on time. I don't know what it was that made that hour impossible for him to arrive at, but he arrived an hour late, and with that hour that he hadn't had the opportunity to get off that 0.05 pounds was the difference between $500,000 in his pocket or $500,000 out of his pocket. That is discipline. Also paying attention to every little detail. If you had asked anybody, including Chris Eubank Jr., what would be the difference if he didn't make weight on the night or the day, I can guarantee you it wouldn't have been the time he showed up at the weigh-in. But that's what changed the game, isn't it?
Wow, what an answer to that question. Now, just one more for you. So we're going to move on. Actually, there's one fight on this card I just want your thoughts on, because it's kind of a bit under the radar. We got a match with Anthony Yarde and Lyndon Arthur for the third time. It looks like there's a bit of needle between them. I've been watching the build-up. They're both looking very good on the scales. What's your thoughts on that fight?
They both have an excuse for their loss, which sets up a nice rubber match. The first fight was during the pandemic, and Yard says that, there was no crowd. He wasn't properly motivated for the fight because of the crowd, and he had some personal things going on, which are massive. Not to diminish them at all. They were major things, family, personal issues, nothing to do with boxing, but he decided he could fight through, and he went ahead and went in there and got a split decision loss. So it's as close as you can get, a split decision, and didn't get his hand raised on the night. And then he said that he respected Arthur after the fact, and he was disrespected by Arthur, and that Arthur was being arrogant about it and saying the fight was easy and such and so forth. And so that motivated Yard to get his discipline together, to get his mind right. When that second fight came, he blew through the doors and ran over Lyndon Arthur. And then at that point, Lyndon Arthur says, well, the first fight was easy. I thought the second fight was going to be easy. I didn't expect him to come that great, and I, credit to it. But it was on me for not being the best Lyndon Arthur I could be. So they both in their minds have qualified their loss as something that they didn't do to meet the mark, not that the other or the better man won. So that means on the third fight, in both of their minds, it's a clean slate, if you will. There's an even equation. And we will find out, because all of those things apparently were a factor in the first two fights, who is the better man. And I think that it is going to be an explosive, possibly, and yes, I will say show-stealing fight on the night. As big as the main event is, this matchup right here might be the one that we walk away talking about as much as the main event, if not more.
And just quick thoughts on the up-and-coming fight in July. The undisputed champion, Alexander Usyk versus Triple D, Daniel Dubois. What's your thoughts on that fight? It's going to be a massive match at Wembley Stadium. 80,000 in the stadium. It's going to be absolutely crazy. Tell us about that, man.
Really happy for Daniel Dubois to get another massive fight at Wembley Stadium, nonetheless. Back-to-back, that's a major accomplishment. He's fighting for the undisputed heavyweight championship of the world, and he's getting a second crack at a guy who beat him out the first time, and again, in a situation where he believes that there was a reason for him having lost that was not legitimate. He thinks he won the fight and then lost the fight after having won it. So in his mind, he needs retribution. He needs to prove to everybody that he did in fact hurt, if not stop, Usyk with that body shot. And for Usyk's sake, he's beaten everybody. He's beaten Joshua twice. He's beaten Fury. He's beaten Dubois. And now people think that there's some way that Dubois is going to best him now while he's holding a belt that Usyk vacated. He didn't beat Usyk in the ring for the belt. This is Usyk talking. And now he's got to reclaim his own IBF title that he never lost in the ring to become undisputed 2 times, which is kind of a gift for Usyk, right? He gets an opportunity to become undisputed 2 times without having lost. That's nice. That's history. So, of course, he's motivated to do it. And on the night, we will find out just who is correct. And if Daniel Dubois comes through, I think it is maybe one of the greatest stories in British boxing history. And if Alexander Usyk comes through, I don't know who else or what else he has to do, but he just may be in the conversation of greatest heavyweights of all time. I really have to start talking about him that way if he becomes 2-time undisputed heavyweight champion and has, in fact, beaten the best and the top 2 British fighters, and then the 3rd top British fighter who also beat Anthony Joshua. I mean, what else is a guy can he do? You got to take your hat off and you got to start putting him in that conversation. So I think there's a lot on the line come July at Wembley, and I think it's going to be a fantastic clash. The Daniel Dubois that fought Alexander Usyk the first time is not the guy who's showing up the second time, and I can't wait to see who it is that is going to climb through those ropes. If it's the guy that we saw against Anthony Joshua, it's going to be a hell of a firefight.
Well, Radio Rahim, I'm really thankful for the interview. I'm a big fan of your work, and I'm really good to be, here with you now, having a conversation. I appreciate you and what you do. Thank you for blessing the podcast, Sports with Blake. Any last words? Any final words?
keep doing what you're doing. You're tenacious. You had to wait a long time for this interview. You had to do it in 2 parts. You know, you came up and had the humility, really, to ask for the interview. Of course, I'm happy to do it, but it takes some courage and some humility to ask somebody else to do something that you don't know, and that's how you get ahead in the game. So make sure that you keep that spirit and you keep your discipline, keep showing up to these things, get every opportunity that you can. And, man, I expect to see you right there in the middle of these press conferences, breaking stories and making news as long as you want to do it. You got the energy, and I like talking to you. So
thank you, brother.
Good luck
Thank
to
you,
my friend.
Thank you. And can I get like a Radio Rahim drop? You know, the legendary one for Sports with Blake podcast. So Sports with Blake.
What is it?
Sports with Blake.
Sports with Blake.
Yeah,
your name is Blake.
Yeah. So
okay,
Sports with
you
Blake.
go with the last name?
Yeah, Blake.
Blake what?
Oh, Dan Blake. That's my
Dan Blake.
Yeah, Dan Blake.
Right.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Radio Rahim here with Dan Blake at the Eubank Benn weigh-in on Fight Week, less than 24 hours away. We will be at Tottenham Spurs Stadium. Everybody